A woman in Italy breaks up with her boyfriend, then her body is found in a lake just north of Venice. Let's start from the beginning. Giulia Cecchettin was like many 22-year-olds. She was about to graduate from university for biomedical engineering and had her whole life ahead of her. Then things changed when she vanished on November 11th of 2023. According to reports, her ex-boyfriend Filippo Turetta had picked her up to go dress shopping ahead of her graduation, but she never made it home. Her disappearance sparked a manhunt to find her. Then a week later, on November 18th of last year, a horrific discovery. Giulia's body was found in a small ravine beside a lake, and the injuries to her body were nothing short of horrific. She was stabbed nearly 80 times, and her body had been wrapped in garbage bags. Investigators seemingly traced the horrific murder to Giulia's ex, Filippo Turetta. However, by the time her body was found, he went on the run, but was arrested 10 days later after he was found in a completely different country, in Germany. It was later revealed Giulia and Turetta's relationship wasn't a loving one. Giulia's friend told investigators she was concerned Turetta was stalking her. Her sister told The Guardian the two had broken up months before her body was found, and Turetta controlled and manipulated Giulia early in their relationship. He would reportedly go into a fit of jealousy if Giulia said she was going to meet a male friend, and although he had never previously been physically violent, he didn't accept that their relationship ended. Giulia's sister said she only met up with him to try to defuse the situation. Eventually, Turetta ended up confessing to the shocking murder. And this year, he went on trial that lasted 2 months. Turetta reportedly testified in his trial and admitted to stabbing Giulia 75 times, then stuffing her body into the garbage bags and dumping her body in the ravine. He reportedly admitted that he even had a written plan for the whole murder, including a list of what he needed to carry out for the murder, but also insisted he didn't intend to actually do it. According to a report by CNN, he testified, "I was angry. I had many thoughts. I felt resentment that we had argued again, that it was a terrible period, that I wanted to get back together, and so, I don't know. In a way, it made me feel good to write this list, to vent, to hypothesize this list that calmed me, to think that things could change. It was as if I didn't have to define it yet, but I had thrown it down." Ultimately, Turetta was found guilty of Giulia's murder, illegal possession of weapons, kidnapping, and concealment of a corpse. The chief prosecutor on the case asked the court for a life sentence, essentially based on aggravating circumstances, like Turetta obtaining knives, tape, a shovel, black garbage bags, ropes, and a wet sock to prevent Giulia from screaming. Prosecutor said he kept items in his car before he lured Giulia into his car on a fake promise he would stop stalking her and they could just be friends. But Turetta's attorney argued against the life sentence, calling it inhumane and degrading. His lawyer reportedly said he is not Pablo Escobar. But the court also heard from the victim herself in the form of a list Giulia wrote herself that her family found titled 15 Reasons I Should Leave Filippo. In the list she reportedly wrote, "He complained when I put fewer hearts than usual. He has strange ideas about taking justice into one's own hands for betrayals, torture, stuff like that. He needs to know everything, even what you say about him to your friends and the psychologist." I want to give a big thank you to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring today's Law & Crime YouTube takeover. Life truly can be so unpredictable, but if you're seriously injured, your case could be worth millions. Morgan & Morgan has more than 1,000 attorneys and a proven track record of huge wins. They recently secured verdicts of $12 million in Florida, $26 million in Philadelphia, and $6.8 million in New York, all exceeding other insurance offers. Even if your case isn't worth 7 figures, why not start a claim and get the money you deserve? Starting a claim is super easy, takes just 8 clicks, and it can be done all from your phone. And guess what? You only pay Morgan & Morgan if you win. So if you're injured, visit forthepeople.com/YouTube takeover or click the link in the description and pinned in the comments to start your claim today. In the end, the court ruled Turetta be sentenced to life in prison. Turetta reportedly was emotionless when he learned his fate in court. But for Giulia's family, they are still grappling with the loss of their daughter. According to reports, Giulia's mother passed away a year prior to her death in 2022. But her father, Gino, was in the courtroom and said after the trial, "I'm no more relieved or sad than I was before the verdict. As a father, nothing has changed." The entire case has sparked debates on violence against women in the country. According to government statistics, 1 woman is killed by a partner every 3 days in Italy. But Giulia's sister and father are hoping their campaign, the Giulia Cecchettin Foundation, will bring awareness to the alarming violence against women. Following Turetta's sentencing, Giulia's father, Gino, also said, "Of course, justice has been done, but the battle against violence against women continues. We must do more as a society." A truly horrible and horrific case overall. So I want to bring on international attorney David Tafuri to get his take on this case. David, thank you so much for joining me. What's your reaction to 23-year-old Filippo Turetta being found guilty of his ex-girlfriend's murder?
Well, the judgment is not surprising because there was overwhelming evidence that he had committed the crimes, and he actually admitted to the crime. So, it's the end of a story that got a lot of publicity in Italy, and it's the right verdict, given the fact that he confessed to it, that there was overwhelming evidence, starting with the video showing him attacking his ex-girlfriend, and then all of the other evidence showing that he accumulated the weapons and other materials he needed to try to kill her and hide the evidence that he had killed her. It's a really tragic story. There's hope that it's going to impact Italy, that there'll be more attention on former boyfriends and husbands who commit violence against their girlfriends and wives. And perhaps because it got so much attention, there will be an effort to try to educate the Italian public about this, to try to provide resources for women who are facing these types of threats in the future.
Yeah, and as you just mentioned, the facts of this case are truly horrific. Stabbed more than 70 times. Then Turetta wrapped her up in a garbage bag and dumped her into a river. What's your take on this brutality of this crime, especially since the two were in a previous relationship?
It's just incredible. I mean, it's hard to understand what Turetta was thinking. He wrote a long letter from a prison right after he was arrested in Germany, after he had fled to Germany, and he completely admits the crime. He almost seems to be suggesting that he's not a bad person, that he somehow just made a mistake. But it's the type of mistake that's really unforgivable. And it's hard to understand what his mindset was at the time of the murder. He was clearly angry, and clearly it was almost a situation where she said, if I can't have her, then nobody can. But he was also premeditated. So he can't just say he lost his temper and suddenly killed her. He had planned to kill her. He actually had been planning it for a while and planned it, then didn't do it, and then eventually he did do it. He also talks in the letter from Germany about wanting to commit suicide, but then he wasn't able to kill himself. I'm not suggesting he should have killed himself, but he had, it was much easier for him to kill someone else than to kill himself. And that's also sort of a strange part about this, that he spent so much time thinking about killing himself, but couldn't commit that act of violence upon himself. But it was quite easy for him to commit these horrific violent acts against his ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, and just can't emphasize enough just how horrific this was. Right before he was sentenced, the prosecutor argued about the aggravated circumstances, which you had mentioned earlier, obtaining the knives, the tape, the shovel, and the garbage bags. But then Turetta's attorney argued he isn't Pablo Escobar. What do you make of both of those arguments, especially the defense's argument that he's not Pablo Escobar?
I found the defense's argument very weak and surprising. He's not Pablo Escobar. Pablo Escobar obviously was a drug kingpin and was responsible for murders, but Pablo Escobar's murders weren't as intimate as this one was. And so you could say his crimes are different from Pablo Escobar, but they are in many ways his crime of murdering someone in such close circumstances, premeditated, is as bad as what Pablo Escobar did. So that claim by the defense lawyer was not convincing at all, and obviously didn't work, and I don't think it really helped his client at all.
And as you mentioned, too, the case did stir up a lot of debate in Italy. And of course, we at Law&Crime deal with a lot of murder cases, especially partner violence. Why do you think we in the United States don't label it as femicide like they do in Italy?
I'm not sure. That term can suggest a separate crime where the elements involve targeting a woman. But apparently in Italy, it isn't a separate crime. So they are just using that as a way to describe the murder, but it's actually not in Italy a different crime either, just as it is not here in the United States. But we do have other protections for women. Certainly, it's been made a lot easier over the years for a woman to get a restraining order against a man who is threatening her. And that's a good development in the law and hopefully is helping protect more women over here. I don't know if in Italy they have relaxed the requirements and they have a similar mechanism to protect women where women can go make an application to a court and get a restraining order that has consequences for the former husband or former boyfriend if he violates the restraining order.
Yeah, and it seemed like, just like cases that we deal with here, it seemed like all the signs that something terrible could happen were there. The victim's family found a list Julia wrote, citing all the different reasons to break up with her ex-boyfriend. And her sister even said that he was stalking her. Do you think more could have been done, in your opinion, to prevent this from happening?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the family saw that list before the murder. I don't think they had that list before the murder. The list, as you mentioned, is also pretty astounding because she lists 15 reasons why she should not be with him. And, just a couple of those reasons would have been enough. He was, a very overbearing boyfriend. He was really limiting her freedom. He was, insisting upon her always being responsive to him to the point of being angry if she did not have enough emojis in text messages to him, insisting that she disclose everything she ever told her friends or even her therapist about him. So this suggests a man who was very insecure, who was putting requirements on his partner that are not normal, and that suggests that maybe he could become violent. And one of the things that she listed, by the way, was that he was vengeful, and he talked about engaging in acts of torture against those who were disloyal to him. So that was the biggest sign. But again, I don't think the family had access to that list before the murder.
Right. Well, David, I want to thank you so much for giving your insight into this case. Before we sign you off, is there anything else you would like to add? Do you think that this case will kind of bring about more change going forward, especially to protect women and other people from domestic violence?
I hope it will. Obviously, domestic violence is a problem across the world, here in the United States and other first world countries like Italy, but also in third world countries. So anytime a case like this gets international attention, it's a good thing to put the spotlight on this problem. But unfortunately, this isn't going to be the last case like this.
All right. Again, David, thank you so much for your insight and your time today. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you.
In Italy, a life sentence is no more than 30 years. Filippo Turetta was also ordered to pay financial damages to Giulia's family as well as cover their legal fees. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.